side or the other side?
Oh, this side, right here. Oh, sorry. And
There he is. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Yes. Introduce my.
Which buttes were you walking?
I was. Oh, you followed me. I was. Was it Gresham Butte? I think it was. It was Gresham, and then there's where are the other ones? Haddon. Is it Haddon Butte? It's the other one.
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really pretty, and there was nobody out there. You know, so it was just really a nice.
What day? What day were you doing?
Last Sabbath afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it clear?
No, it was a little overcast. Very, very
I
light.
was going to say if it was Wednesday, you could see all the people.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Sabbath. Thank you so much for coming out to this special Sabbath School presentation. My name is Pastor Seth. I'm the lead pastor here at Sunnyside Church. And I was very excited when my friend and colleague Christopher Banks reached out to me and said he had an opportunity to come share with us about the conflict that we're seeing in the Middle East. Christopher Banks was a professor of international relations at Union College while I was there teaching communication and religion. And he is an Oxford-trained scholar, and the students loved him, still love him. Just a tremendously knowledgeable gentleman. And I'm so excited that he is here to help us get a Christian perspective, a biblical perspective on what is happening in the world. His current position is Director of Education and Workforce Development for the Urban League of Portland, which is a sister organization of the NAACP. And I don't want to take up any more of his time, so we're going to pray, and then I'm going to hand the time over to Christopher. Let's pray. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for this opportunity to study and discuss together world events in light of your word. I pray a special blessing and anointing on Christopher as he shares. Bless us to gain understanding and wisdom and to ask the right questions and to walk away from this experience feeling hopeful, empowered, and able to minister and shine light where it is needed. In your name we pray. Amen.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. Very excited for today. Thank you for coming out in what I've been told is normal Portland weather. I'm originally from back east of Maryland. I'll still claim to be very new here. My wife and our 4-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son, we all arrived here like the Brady Bunch in May. So everyone was saying, I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And they're like, yeah, just wait, November's coming. So we're very, very happy to be here. Thank you very much to Pastor Seth Pierce. We had excellent time at Union College. And thank you very much for turning out today on what I'm hoping will be not just informative, but expansive in getting past what we're just hearing with the tidbits in the news. Now, this won't be exhaustive, but as Pastor Pierce stated, the purpose here is to touch on what's happening, and especially in the Seventh-day Adventist context, just that. There is a Seventh-day Adventist context. That's one big message that I hope can be taken away today. Seventh-day Adventists, we're not just watching on the sidelines. In a way, yes, we are with the rest of the world, but there is a context for this, and there is a specific Adventist context for this. So without further ado, I'll spend the next about 25 to 30 minutes sharing some background and aspects of the conflict, and then in the next 30 minutes after that, we'll open it up for questions and answers, because I assure you, you will have questions. And let me just say outright that I don't presuppose to have all the answers, not at all, but I am happy to brainstorm and to think with everyone. Yes? All right. So, 2023 Israel-Hamas war. This is the fourth war between the state of Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This is not the first one. This is not new. In fact, the 4 wars that have taken place between Israel and Hamas have happened within a 15-year period. So when Christ talks about wars and rumors of wars, there have always been wars since sin has been on the earth. But even just in the microcosm of the neighborhood around Israel with the occupied territories, 4 wars between Israel and Hamas in 15 years. My background is international relations. My training is international relations. Even for people like myself who enjoy our discipline, we're like, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. We're going to go through what the occupied territories are. Effectively, there are 3 occupied territories. You'll see this in just a bit. But just to introduce Gaza Strip, which is where the war in Hamas is taking place. We will go through how Hamas took over the Gaza Strip. The Golan Heights, which Israel has declared is annexed. That was a part of Syria during the 1967 Six-Day War, taken from Syria. And then the West Bank, which is the large portion that used to belong to Jordan taken in the same war, 1967 Six-Day War in June of that year. What are we discussing for Sabbath School today? We're going to make this very, very straightforward. We're going to understand the Israeli position. We're going to understand the Palestinian position. We're going to understand the U.S. position. There's a strong feeling in the United States right now, hey, let them duke it out, not our fight, right? The Middle East, yep, it's kind of passing by two people throwing fists at each other in the street, and you're like, not my fight, not going to get involved. But like it or not, we are involved. What I hope to present today is why we're involved. Like myself, you know, you don't have to take any particular side. You don't have to agree with the why we're involved. It's just helpful to understand how we became involved in this and why we are continuing to be involved. And by the way, this has nothing to do with political orientation. Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Libertarian, you know, I stand on my head party, it really doesn't matter. It's all about geopolitical interests. And then what I will put forward, now you have a lot of pastors in the Christian world, evangelical pastors mostly, who are stating that, oh, this is it. This is evangelical eschatology, and we're all sliding into the end times. Here's my proposal for the Seventh-day Adventist context. As Seventh-day Adventists, we have our eschatological viewpoint. I'm proposing that this war with Hamas is very different than the other wars, and it fits within Daniel 11. Now, Pastor Pierce might smile at this. Daniel 11, 41 to 45 are verses that everyone stays away from. Yeah? Everyone stays away from it. It's like the first part of Daniel 11, we're very, very comfortable. The end of Daniel 11, big question mark, and we'll get to it later. Well, welcome to later. Welcome to later. And then answering questions, what next and why, and God's character in this mess, where is it? God is absolutely in this mess, and he's working his character out. Okay? Very quickly, you know, we start with the words of Christ. Take heed that no man deceive you. Now, I'm not trying to propose that we're being deceived per se, but, you know, I chose this verse just to underline the fact that there can be clarity in this. Again, when I was teaching modern Middle East at Union College for 8 years, what I would tell the students is, it's possible to understand the Middle East. And what I love seeing on students' faces is going from, I don't know, it's all a mess, it's whatever, to at the end of the semester, it's logical. You actually can understand, when you understand the interests of each party, who's going to do what. Okay. Occupied territories. To understand the occupied territories, we understand the three territories. Golan Heights is in the upper kind of northeastern corner. That belonged to Syria. That was taken in the 1967 war. West Bank, right there in the center, belonged to Jordan. It was taken by Israel in the 1967 war. Gaza Strip belonged to Egypt. It was taken in the 1967 war. There are three major wars that define the modern Israeli state. War number one, which seems to have a bit of a strike through it, but the Israeli 1948 war, Israel was established May of 1948, May 10th of 1948. Immediately when Israel declared itself as a nation, right, in the modern sense, right after World War II, it was attacked by 8 Arab countries, right? Israel defeated all the attacking Arab countries, but more to the point of what we're looking at with the Palestinians who lived where Israel is now, as well as in other areas, which is now the West Bank, where they were, I mean, let's just be very straightforward. They call it the Nakba, they call it the catastrophe, because Israel not only defeated the Arab armies in 1948, it expanded its territory. So 1967 was a huge game changer even beyond that. This is where Israel gains the occupied territories. So in 1948, there are no occupied territories, again, in the terms of the 3 territories we see. Palestinians would claim, and I think to some effect, that a lot of their homes were destroyed and certain territories occupied. But that's not what we mean by occupied territories. When you hear right of return, it's talking about the Palestinians who want to return from the 1948 war. That generation is almost dead. That generation is almost dead. As Americans, if you think of how many World War II veterans are left alive, that's around the same effect of the number of Palestinians left alive from 1948, right? Because it's pretty much from the same period. But 1967, Israel gains all the occupied territories. At the last square, Israel takes the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, but if those of you who may remember, 1978, Israel made peace with Egypt, and in 1982, Israel gave back the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt. Okay? So it used to have 4 occupied territories. After 1982, it has 3. 1967 to 2023. That's a long time. That's a long time. You might want to say, well, why doesn't Israel give them back? It's very, very simple. Security. Security. And you'll see certain maps as we go on. 1973 Yom Kippur War. Israel did not outright win that war. Egypt and Syria attacked Israel during Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So the Day of Atonement, as we read in Scripture, in Exodus, in the Day of Atonement, there's no work, so everything was quiet in Israel. No one was at the office or working. The state came to a standstill, and Israel and Syria attacked during Yom Kippur. That was October 6, 1973. When did Hamas attack Israel? Last month. October 7th, 2023. Almost exactly 50 years to the day. That was not by accident. That was not by accident. And it was a religious holiday in Israel, right? So it's not by accident. So Israel won 2 wars, still made it on the last one. Okay, there's also a second front. Maybe you've already seen a bit in the news. Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, so Lebanon sits on top of Israel. Hezbollah in southern Lebanon is pretty much armed to the teeth, strong army and militias, does not answer to Beirut. Some people can even say that Hezbollah really kind of is in control of Lebanon, basically. Not officially, but unofficially. And Iran backs Hezbollah. So Israel has a 2-front war, and technically, with rockets coming from Yemen that Iran also backs, the Houthis in Yemen, you can argue it's a 3-front war. But it's currently a 2-front war. Allow me to really hone in the point that Israel is it's slightly smaller than the state of New Jersey. Anyone been to New Jersey? Yeah, I think, I'm just guessing here, about 10, 11 states of New Jersey can fit into Oregon. Yeah? So Israel, in fact, this is not too much of a off estimation. Israel is about the size of going from the Columbia River, just here in Portland, I'd say down to Eugene. Am I getting this right? Down to Eugene? Yeah? Eugene's about 4 hours away. I'm new people, right? 2? Yeah, so extend it by maybe another half hour, 45 minutes. Okay? That's the length of the state of Israel. If you're thinking like the US Pentagon, if you're thinking like the Israeli state, can you defend that? Barely. The small part, I guess I'll go forward just back through. That small part, if you take the West Bank, from the edge of the West Bank to the Mediterranean Sea at the narrowest point, that's 9 miles long. That's 9 miles long. If anyone's been in the Air Force, you cannot defend 9 miles. By the time the military jet enters into your airspace and you scramble jets, it's over. It's over. So therefore, let me kind of jump ahead slightly here. This is why Israel will not give up the West Bank. It's as simple as that. This is why the West Bank still remains occupied. Because if Israel gives up the West Bank, it can't defend 9 miles. It cannot. By the way, there you see kind of the range of rockets from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon to Israel. So it's almost down to where the Red Sea port of Elath is, or Iliad. So really, Hezbollah rockets can cover almost the entire country. Oop. All right, Hamas. How Hamas was formed, how they took over the Gaza Strip. Hamas is an organization that is against the Oslo Accords. If anyone remembers 1993, President Bill Clinton, then President Bill Clinton, had his Jimmy Carter moment, and Yitzhak Rabin, who was the Israeli prime minister, shook hands with Yasser Arafat, who was the long-time, since 1969, leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. The Palestinian, or the then Palestinian Liberation Organization, the purpose was to basically free Palestine and to undo the effects of the 1948 conflict, right? Israel's War of Independence, or the Nakba in Arabic with the Palestinians. The whole point of the PLO was to undo 1948. That was the entire point. So you imagine how powerful this was, that it went from, and Yasser Arafat was pretty much head of the PLO from its inception in 1969. So it goes from wanting to undo everything from 1948 to shaking hands in the White House Rose Garden with the US hosting. Now, I'm sorry, I know this is very small. The first bullet point is just simply the Oslo Accords. It's in two parts. One, 1993 in D.C., Washington, D.C., signed. Oslo II Accords, signed in Taba, Egypt in 1995. Here's the whole point. It basically brought the Palestinian Liberation Organization out from the cold, legitimized them in the eyes of the global community. Israel, Jordan, the United States, and the United Nations then provided funding for the for the PLO. The name of the PLO changed to the Fatah Party, F-A-T-A-H, the Fatah Party, and then the Palestinian Authority was set up to administrate services in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Keep that in mind. So in 1993, especially from 1993 to 1985, by 1995, PLO comes from the cold, name changes to the Fatah Party, Palestinian Authority is set up. Why is it called the Palestinian Authority? Because there's no state yet. There's no state yet. And the Oslo Accords were supposed to work to, you probably have heard of it, the two-state solution. We'll get to that in just a bit. Sorry, everything's so small. I've kind of covered the middle parts there. The last two bullet points, well, last three. Hamas was formed in 1987. So Hamas was an organization by Ahmed Yasser, formed in 1987 to, of course, destroy the state of Israel, as it says in its charter. Kill Jewish people, destroy the state of Israel. That's not hyperbole. When you hear that in the news, that is correct. That is in the charter of Hamas, right? It was formed in 1987. Hamas never really liked the PLO, but they were two organizations that were trying to reach the same goals: destroy the state of Israel, undo the Jewish immigration to the area of Palestine. And you can imagine in 1993, when the PLO shook hands with Israel and agreed to Israel's right to exist, did Hamas like that? Yes or no? Now you start seeing the festering. Now you start seeing the festering. 2007, everything broke out into the open. Hamas, basically, now remember, the Palestinian organization from 1995 onward administered services to the Palestinian people with outside U.S., Israeli funding and UN funding as well. Palestinian Authority administered services to Palestinian people in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Very, very simple. In 2007, Hamas took over the Gaza Strip. Absolutely kicked the Palestinian Authority out. So what did that leave? That left the Palestinian Authority and its then leader, Mahmoud Abbas, in charge of the West Bank only. So effectively, as I speak to you this day, there are two separate governing entities to the Palestinian people. Fatah and the Palestinian Authority, Fatah Party and the Palestinian Authority administer the West Bank. Hamas administers the Gaza Strip. So let me kind of jump ahead slightly here and talk about the U.S. interest in the region. Why is the U.S. so interested in peace being made, right? We'd like peace all over the world, right? When Christ comes, we'll have peace all over the globe. Why is the U.S. so interested in peace being made now? Well, because Israel is a strong ally. There's a separate slide on that, and we'll explain why Israel is considered by the U.S. to be its strongest ally. You'll hear it over and over and over again. Biden visited Israel days after, or a week and a half after the attacks in October. But this has been a long march. This has been a long march. 1978, some of you remember, the Camp David Accords, very famous. Egypt made peace with Israel. This was super important. Why? Because Egypt was the effective leader of the Arab world in terms of army, manpower, and being, up to 1978, backed by the Soviet Union, those who remember the Cold War. Yes? So to have Egypt flip, now remember, in each one of the 3 wars against Israel, Egypt was really leading the charge on each one. So to have Egypt flip from being a Soviet ally of the Soviet Union, and anti-Israel, and accepting Soviet armaments, to signing a peace deal with Israel, major, huge. That's why this is always, always, always a big deal. It's why Egypt doesn't attack Israel today. In Daniel 11, verses 42 and 43, it talks about the king of the north having power over all the treasury of Egypt and all the precious things of Egypt. That's true. There you have it. From 1978, we effectively, Israel, we give about $6.1 billion to Israel in foreign aid per year. That's the first country that receives the most direct foreign financial assistance from the U.S. Egypt is the second. So Israel's the first, Egypt's the second. What are we doing? We're keeping the peace. If we removed, we give Egypt about 5.8, I think it's up towards $5.9 billion a year. If Congress removes financing Egypt, sorry if the Egyptian government's watching, Egypt will collapse. Egypt will collapse. Egypt will collapse. Egypt does not have the finance to sustain itself without Congress giving it $5.8 billion a year. That doesn't count military aid that Egypt then uses to fight certain terrorists in the Sinai Desert. So that is the linchpin for Middle East peace. That is the linchpin for Middle East peace. There was a report that before the attack, or after the attack happened, the report came out later after the attack, that the head of Egyptian intelligence called his counterpart, the head of Israeli intelligence, to say, hey, we're hearing, with our surveillance, we're hearing chatter on the ground. We think something's going to happen with Hamas in Gaza. Well, why could they do that? Why could they pick up a phone and call a direct line? Because they've had it since at least the 80s, since 1982. Yeah? There, you'll see, after the Oslo Accords, 1984, Israel and Jordan make peace. So around the neighborhood, Israel's making peace. The only, well, we'll touch that in just a bit. 2020, you had the Abrahamic Accords with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Now, it wasn't as if the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain were trying to fight Israel. They have never militarily fought with Israel before. Excuse me, sorry. But it was still good accords because Israel has a periphery policy where at least they tried to make peace not only with its direct neighbors, but with the kind of secondary circle of neighbors and countries around its direct neighbors. So that fulfilled that. The U.S. Embassy officially moved to Jerusalem in 2018. This was very hotly debated, not only in the region, but even in the State Department, in the U.S. State Department, even in the U.S. Pentagon. Why? Because Israel has not declared, since its founding in 1948, Israel has not declared Jerusalem to be the capital. Why? Because it used to be split. So East Jerusalem used to be part of Jordan. West Jerusalem was part of Israel during its founding in 1948. After 1948, and really after 1967, when Israel took the entire West Bank, they also took East Jerusalem. So, and East Jerusalem, by the way, just to hone in the point, East Jerusalem is where the temple used to be, it's where the Wailing Wall is now, it's where the Al-Aqsa Mosque for the Islamic world is located, right there on top of where the temple used to be. All of that is in East Jerusalem. So, if you have, and we'll get to it in just a bit, if you have kind of your more religiously inclined political parties in Israel, of which there are a few, if they're clamoring that Jerusalem should be made the capital in all of Jerusalem, not just West Jerusalem, great cafes, but, you know, it doesn't have King David City, right? So if they're clamoring for that, then what does it mean for the U.S. to move its embassy there? Effectively, we are saying, you know what, if you want to make Jerusalem the capital, we're okay with that. We had never done that before. Now, to be very fair to the State Department, they did not move the embassy properly in East Jerusalem in 2018. They moved it where it straddled what's called the Armistice Line, 1947-1967 Armistice Line. So basically, the embassy does not touch East Jerusalem, but it's kind of on the river on the bank, right? How cute. Still, you had a lot of Palestinians who were furious at that, and there was a mini uprising. Another reason for the attack in October, going back to Hamas, another reason for the Hamas attack in October was because, remember, we've seen the march of Israel making peace with its neighbors. What would happen if Israel made peace with Saudi Arabia? Would that be huge? Absolutely. I mean, it would just be, I'm tempted to say, there are those who might disagree, but I'm tempted to say that would be the big kahuna, the linchpin of all peace treaties that Israel could make. Why? Because if Israel made peace with Saudi Arabia effectively postulates itself, quite rightly, since Mecca and Medina are inside its borders, as the leader of the Islamic world globally. So if Saudi Arabia, as the leader of the Islamic world, and effectively the leader of the Sunni Muslim world, there are two categories in Islam, two broad categories in Islam, there are more, but the Sunnis are 85% of the Islamic world, the Shia are 15%. But if Saudi Arabia makes peace with Israel, would it be harder for other Muslim majority countries to be against Israel if Saudi Arabia had led the way? So it was heavily rumored that Saudi Arabia was going to sign a peace treaty with Israel. And that also led to Hamas striking when they did, so they could scuttle the peace deal. Also, who backs Hamas? Even though Hamas is an Arab, Sunni, Palestinian organization, who's providing weapons? Iran. Iran is providing weapons. And I don't have time to break down the entire Muslim world in 2 more minutes. but just understand, it's like, I hope this is a fitting analogy, it's as if you have Catholics and Protestants, right, which we do. Never mind the divisions in the Protestant world, just leave the Protestants as a lump group. And it's as if Israel makes peace with the Pope, then it's hard for like the Philippines or some other majority Catholic country to still hate Israel, right? I mean, the Pope made peace. This is an analogy, by the way. This is an analogy. But you get the sense? This was going to be huge. And it got out into the press, and it was heavily, heavily rumored. And so Hamas, it's really strongly understood and supposed that Hamas struck when it did to scuttle that deal. And who was behind Hamas? Iran. And do Hamas, right, scuttle the deal. And then, of course, it's on the 50th anniversary, almost to the day, of the 1973 war. We'll go past. Sorry, I'm going to go forward here. Because Hamas is being backed by Iran, you start to put the whole aspect together of the fact that Saudi Arabia and Iran do not like each other. And to make it very, very short and sweet, it's because both of them argue of who should be the leader of the Muslim world globally. Iran believes that it should be the leader of the Muslim world. Saudi Arabia believes that it should be the leader of the Muslim world. Once again, if Saudi Arabia thinks of itself as the leader of the Muslim world and was going to make peace with Israel, then Iran, hating Saudi Arabia and being a challenge to Saudi Arabia, then Iran's like, no, we are going to keep ourselves as the anti-Israel faction, and we're going to finance Hezbollah, and we're going to finance Hamas, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and we're going to finance the Houthis, if you've seen on the news, in Yemen. The Houthis are a Shia group in Yemen with rockets given by Iran, and you've already seen the rockets come from Yemen. Do you understand? The rockets are coming from all the Iranian-backed groups. The rockets are coming from all the Iranian-backed groups. I'll go back just 2 seconds here. We touched on just here so you can just see the maps. Again, the range of any rockets coming from Hezbollah. I will say quickly that the United States has assisted Israel. We provided the money, basically, and technology, and we pretty much built the Iron Dome for Israel. The Iron Dome was to the tune of almost $10 billion. It took us several years to construct, and it's an anti-missile defense system. So when missiles are coming from southern Lebanon, or missiles are coming from Hamas in the Gaza Strip, or missiles are coming from Yemen, you hear poof, poof, poof in the air, because then missiles are shot from several positions from what's called the Iron Dome, and they intercept the missiles coming in from those three regions. It's been largely effective, yeah? I don't know how closely everyone's been following the missiles coming in from Hamas in the last month, but there were 2 times or 3 times that Hamas had tried to override the system by shooting so many missiles that they're like, let's just test it. It's like pushing a button 1,000 times a second. Let's just test it. Can you get every missile? Okay. They got 95%. You know? So that's what's going on. So this is just to show you. The Houthis are down there in Yemen, and even though that range doesn't go as far, they have other missiles provided by Iran that do reach Israel. Okay, can we get out of this? Can we get out of this? I mean, we have our own kitchen table politics to worry about, mortgage and the kids and everything. I mean, why can't we just use all that money that we're pouring in over there to just help all of us here at home? Why can't we just leave them alone, let them fight it out, and do some cost savings and pour those billions of dollars in here to the American people? Well, here's why. And once again, I'm so sorry it's so tiny. Again, as we discussed quickly beforehand, Israel is considered by the United States, and I would actually say yes, rightly so, the only Western-oriented nation in the Middle East. Now, you'll hear this over and over again. That Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and Israel is Netanyahu says, we are the standard of civilization and the beacon of civilization, and fine, okay? But past the speech points, even if Israel was a dictatorship, we would still support it, okay? It's past democracy. All right? If Israel could be a dictatorship, we would still support it because it's the only ally that we have in that region. And no world power, not Britain or anyone else, no world power has been able to maintain global superiority without having a stabilized presence in the Middle East. Now, after Iraq and Afghanistan, it would be a tall order to ask the American people to commit their sons and daughters, boots on the ground, as they say, in Israel. Right? The American people would say, you know what? No, we've been through enough in 25 years. So then we have Israel, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. They will maintain U.S. interests in the Middle East. And all we have to do is fund them from 50,000 miles away. We are not going to, and I don't care what the political leanings are, it really doesn't matter. Again, it could be the party of the dancing green monkey. It doesn't matter, okay? Because of our geopolitical interests, that is why we don't leave this region. That's why we don't leave this region. And then also there's a financial element, let's be honest, right? Out of all the countries of the Middle East that we make money with Saudi Arabia, we make money with the United Arab Emirates, we make money with Bahrain, we make money with Kuwait. We make money with pretty much almost everybody except for Syria and Iran and Yemen, because they're busy right now, right? But we make money with everybody, right? Well, we make the most money with Israel, right? They have manufacturing, they have a military-industrial complex, they take a lot of our foreign aid and pour it into their tech companies, and then turn around and sell technology to the United States. We make multi-billions of dollars off of Israel. And Israel's not an oil-producing country. So it's because of geopolitical interests, and it's because of money that we stay with Israel. Mind you, $6 billion of direct foreign assistance. How many people here have been to Israel? Yeah. And that's just here. You add in the entire American evangelical community, we're talking $9+ billion a year Just evangelicals. They're not even counting Adventists. Just evangelicals, $9 billion. We're up to $15 billion. Let's add some more. You also have the American Jewish Societies, Birthright Israel, AIPAC, B'nai B'rith, that go and constantly support Israel with their private money and company money. We're in the multi-billions, folks. We're in the multi-billions, yeah? And Christ said, you cannot serve God and mammon. Well, we're with mammon. We're with mammon, and so we're with Israel, yeah? Noah's prophecy, I want to touch on this because I heard this, and it was actually another one of the reasons why I reached out to Pastor Pierce to want to kind of present quickly today. Noah's prophecy, and again, I'm so sorry it's so small. It always seems much larger when you're writing it, so I apologize for that. All right, Noah's prophecy, Genesis 9, it's really 25 to 27, but I really focus on 26 and 27. Just to be quick with this, people put there, it's basically, I think, if you're not familiar with the story, it's after the flood. Noah plants a vineyard, makes some wine, oops, it's fermented, you know, has a not so stellar day. Ham comes in, sees his father naked, and goes out, you know, tee-hee-hee-hee-hee, and tells his other brothers, Japheth and Shem. Japheth and Shem, going backwards into the tent, cover their father Noah in respect. Noah wakes up from what unfortunately was a couple of hours of, I guess he didn't mean to, drunkenness. And the Bible says he knew what his son had done to him, Ham. But he cursed Canaan. Canaan was the son of Ham. Canaan was the son of Ham. He cursed Canaan. He said, a servant of servants shall he be to his brethren. Now, two things here. One, there is no curse of Ham, people. Can I just say that loudly and clearly? There's no curse of Ham. Black people are not cursed, okay? That comes from the Babylonian Talmud. That comes from the Babylonian Talmud, and we don't have time today to talk about that. But Jerusalem's destroyed in 70 AD, and upon the destruction of Jerusalem, not all the rabbis, but a good contingent of rabbis from Jerusalem go to Babylon. We just don't have time. Maybe another sermon, I can unpack this. But they go to Babylon. And basically, a lot of the words that the rabbis had with Christ, and Christ is like, in vain you're teaching for doctrine the commandments of men, those commandments of men by the rabbis were codified in Babylon, leading to the Babylonian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud is not very kind against Christ, if you read it, and it's huge, so it's a lot of reading. But it's not very kind against Christ. It's not very kind against black people. That's where the curse of Ham came from. It does not come from Genesis. In Genesis, Canaan, the son of Ham, is cursed. And here's the point. If you look at the last three there, even the verse is quoted on the last major bullet point. And Noah said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. That is what Genesis says. The last three, enlarging of Japheth. Well, U.S. and Europe, which were behind world civilization for millennia, then all of a sudden advanced to the front of world civilization after 1500. Japheth is enlarged, okay? Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Western Europe, or Westerners, accept Judeo-Christian tradition after the conversion of Constantine and the Roman Empire becomes Christian. All of a sudden, it's amazing. No other empire on earth did this happen in history, that you just change your religion. Name me another empire that changed its religion. Never happened. Only the Roman Empire. So then it accepts Christ. Just like the Bible said, Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. And that also leads to the major alliance that we have here today with U.S. and Israel. So you imagine that way back in Noah's day, through the vision that God gave him, he called it, okay? So again, Genesis 9, 26, 27 has nothing to do with black people, has, in my humble opinion, a strong connection to what we see geopolitically today with U.S. and Israel. By the way, it wasn't just Biden that went to, I'll finish here in about 2 minutes, we'll open up for question and answers. It wasn't just Biden that went to Israel. Biden got the most play because it's the United States, and obviously we're the world power. But Richie Sunak from Britain went to Israel after Biden, and Emmanuel Macron from France, president of France, went to Israel after Biden. You had this complete, visit after visit after visit of Western leaders going to Israel. Again, Japheth in the tents of Shem. Very, very quickly, now this is the final part, I would like as much as possible to explain current Israeli politics in 2 minutes. Right. Tall, tall task. Here are the big takeaways. We think Israel is a modern state. Not everyone in Israel is religious. Not everyone in Israel is religious. You have two major parties. It used to be called the Labor Party. Well, let me just fast forward here. It's Yesh Atid. So Likud is the right-wing party. That's the prime minister's party, Netanyahu. And they have a parliamentary system. You vote for the party, and the head of the party becomes prime minister, just like in Britain, okay? So you have Likud. But here's the point. Likud did not have enough seats to have an outright majority in Israel. This is now, right now, as we have this discussion. Likud did not have enough seats. So it had to form a bond, an alliance, political alliance in the parliament, in the Knesset, with Jewish Home, Yisrael Bietenu, and Shas party. Where's Shas? Shas is right there in the yellow, and UTJ. UTJ and Shas are ultra right-wing parties. Basically, the big takeaway that we need to understand here is that as we have this talk today, the tail is wagging the dog. The hard right parties in Israel are now running the country. The hard right parties in Israel are influenced by Talmudic teaching and influence. So if Talmudic teaching and influence are saying, well, let's just do away with the Palestinians, they're lower than us, and all those who are influenced by Talmudic teaching, remember, this is the same teaching that Christ said don't follow. It's the same teaching that Christ said don't follow. So the same teaching that Christ said not to follow is now in charge of Israel. Let that sink in right now. And if that same Talmudic teaching that Christ said not to follow is now in charge of Israel, and if that same Talmudic teaching says all Arabs are dogs under our feet, well, you see where it's going? You see where it's going? Again, this is the current government. Oh, that's super small. Forget it. Forget it. Basically, the prime minister is at the top, the deputy prime minister is at the bottom, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The next 7, including Minister of the Interior, some key ministries, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, are all run by the Shas party. Shas has Netanyahu. They have him. Netanyahu's like, I don't want to do what you want to do. Really? 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 You want to make that decision? Because we run this place, and you will do as you're told, which Netanyahu doesn't respond very well to that. But anyway, that's just to show the far-right parties that really are running Israel here. Last thing, in Daniel 11:45, so let me just come right out with it. I believe that we're at the end of Daniel 11. Seth, we can talk about this later. I believe that we're at the end of Daniel 11. The very chapter that a lot of us say, oh my goodness, I just can't understand it. Surprise, we're at the end. My proposal, feel free to disagree, my proposal, we're at the end. And therefore, the Bible says that basically the king of the north, and we can go through it question and answer time, we still have some good time for that. King of the north will basically plant the tabernacle of his palaces in the glorious land, that's Israel, in between the sea and the holy mountain. So in between the Mediterranean and Mount Zion. Oops, where's Mount Zion? Oops, where is it? East Jerusalem, right? So basically, here's the plan under Trump. But hold on, watch. Oh my. See, there were Camp David summit talks when they tried the two-state solution in the year 2000. And in the year 2001, I was working at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. I had an internship, research internship, at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. So that map in the yellow and brown, that was the map in my younger days. That map in the blue, which is actually from the Institute, that map in the blue was under President Trump when they opened up the embassy in 2018. 18 years, nothing changed. Look at it. It's the same map. So what will happen with the two-state solution? So to round things up, Israel is focused on getting rid of Hamas from the Gaza Strip. We haven't really seen an uptick in Israel warring with Hezbollah, but in order for it to fit in Scripture, Israel will probably go to war with Hezbollah. Israel will probably win against Hezbollah. Israel will probably win against Hamas and what they're doing now in the Gaza Strip. Therefore, that will clear the last two, right? The Houthis aren't that powerful. They shot a couple of rockets, but they're not that powerful. It's really Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel will probably defeat Hezbollah. Israel will probably defeat Hamas. It will clear the last two threats to its territorial integrity. Then it will implement this two-state solution to which the Palestinians will be left with Swiss cheese. I don't have time to break down this map. I could break down this map all day. But because the Jordan River Valley stays in Israel's hands because it needs it for defense. The two bypass roads through Hebron and Jericho stay in Israel's hands because they need it for defense. I could just go on and on and on and on and on. Whatever Israel does not need for its defense will be left for the Palestinians. Yeah, there you go. You can have the scraps. Okay? And you just see that nothing's changed in this map. This map will be the one that will be implemented. I don't have time. Yes to Daniel 11, no to Ezekiel 38. There are those who believe that Ezekiel 38, so this is mostly in the American evangelical community. The war started happening between Israel and Hamas, and the evangelical community in the United States, not every pastor, but a lot, were saying, oh my goodness, this is Ezekiel 38, Russia's going to attack Israel, there's going to be a big conflagration, Armageddon's going to come, and we're going to ring in the second coming. No, people, no. Here's why. From the international relations, we've studied this, we know this is our discipline, it's never going to happen. Because bottom bullet point, October 2021, and then a major summit in March 2022, Israel and Russia pretty much signed a memorandum and an agreement stating that you stay in northern Syria, Russia, and we'll stay in southern Syria. Got it, shake hands, peace out, thanks. And I'm not trying to be mean towards certain pastors in the evangelical community, but this is another big reason why I wanted to have this talk, because everyone's kind of hearing this, and I just want to say, no. They made an agreement. They're not going to attack. Russia's not going to attack. Plus, Russia's mired in where? Ukraine. Russia doesn't have the headspace. It doesn't have the bandwidth to do anything with Israel, and it wouldn't because the U.S. will defend Israel even with nuclear weapons. So Russia's never going to attack Israel. Last point here. So we've looked at biblical prophecy. We've looked at, I know we've done a fast run through here, but we've looked at biblical prophecy. We've looked at elements in which generally people don't get a chance to know. We've seen some maps, but just understand that biblical prophecy does not justify the humanitarian disaster against the population. Whatever happens, I don't care who's killing who, God's going to judge both sides, okay? So humanitarian disaster, if it's happening with the Hamas attack and killing Jews, it's wrong. If it's happening with the IDF bombing buildings in Gaza where people cannot escape, it's wrong. And I know 2 days ago we announced that we worked out with Israel a 4-hour window, 4 hours to escape, and rubble and your child's dead. No, it's not enough time. In Christ's words, and thank you. That was super fast even for me. Let's open up to any questions. Thank you.
Question? Go ahead and raise your hand, and I will take the mic. You can't point at somebody else. You gotta, I gotta see the hand. Okay. Question over here, and I'll come up here. All right.
Yes.
Was Yasser Arafat's father Adolf Hitler's emissary to the Palestinians?
No. I've heard that many times. Many other people, not just me, many other people who are even stronger experts than myself have heard that many times. That is, no, that's not true. Yeah, no problem. This is what this talk's about.
the representative from Michigan got censured for a slogan, "From the river to the sea." What's the meaning of that slogan, and why is it so inflammatory?
Excellent question, just so that we all have clarity. When people, the motto, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free," that is the slogan that Palestine should be free from Israeli control. There are two options to that slogan. Option number one, you do not agree with Israel's right to exist, and so therefore you have a lot of American Jewish and Israeli groups that say that slogan means you don't agree to Israel's right to exist, means you want all Jews into the Mediterranean. Dead. I can see where people say that, honestly. The other option are those who say, no, we just mean that coexistence. From the river to the sea, Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine shall be free. We should just have coexistence and not occupation. So, it depends on who you talk to on which one of those options they take. Excellent question.
A little bit related to that, why do you think, I'm over here.
Sorry. Yes, great.
Why do you think that in this country people can say comments supporting dictators in Hungary, Russia, China, but when it comes to this topic, people get in trouble, like the congresswoman or all the university presidents? When did that start where putting out any kind of public statement about Israel can get you into trouble because it's not strong enough for or against?
Yeah, excellent question, excellent question. It leads to the slide that we just discussed about the fact that Israel is literally the only state, nation, in the Middle East that works completely 110% in tandem with U.S. interests. There might be some people in the Pentagon that might smirk and smile at that 110% notion, right? Because we spy on Israel, Israel spies on us. But, it's friendly spying, right? Like, we're all just happy. I'm just spying on your birthday party. But that is the reason why. And the aspect is that younger generations aren't as in lockstep with supporting U.S.-Israeli policy. So there is a fear and a worry, frankly, in a lot of circles in Washington and New York and basically political and financial capitals in the United States, that when the older generations pass off the scene and the younger generations are not as lockstep, then that will be a threat to U.S. support of Israel because it won't have the demographic backing here in the United States for it. So there is a serious worry about that. There's always been a very strong response if someone politically or in the financial world does not advocate strongly for Israel. I'll go on a limb here, a lot of people in the U.S. population probably don't understand why that's so strong, but that's what I've tried to show here. It's coming from the political element and the financial element in the United States, that if Israel goes down, who's really going to host us? Okay, we have a large Air Force base in the UAE, but I don't know if people remember, during the first Persian Gulf War, we had 250,000 troops in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is like, oh, you are so welcome here. Can you kind of go behind the kitchen so our people don't see you? Because that will kind of upset them. We're just going to hide you in the desert here, right? And then we had the Khobar Tower bombings in 1995, and Saudi Arabia's like, oh, man, you're going to have to leave. The royal family wanted us there, but the people would not accept it. The people would not accept it. My mother lived in Saudi Arabia before I was born in 1979 to 1980. Saudis are great, wonderful hospitality, great country, to be honest with you. But the people won't accept that. They won't accept that. And we tried it, and it blew back in our face in 1995. So Israel's the one strong element that we have. I'll also say this very quickly. Oh, good, we have more time. I'll also say this quickly. There used to be two countries that the U.S. could rely on. Especially in the 1940s and the 1950s, and up until 1975. Israel, of course, and Lebanon. Lebanon used to be, it's not anymore, Lebanon used to be the only Christian governed country in the Middle East. Lebanon there are a lot of Maronite Christians. They're an affiliate of the kind of Catholic Church in the Middle East. So the Maronites. And I don't know how many people here remember the Lebanese Civil War, 1975 to 1990. The Maronites were like Israel today. They were very, very strong with U.S. policy. I don't know, don't raise your hand, but if anybody remembers the Eisenhower administration, in 1953, President Eisenhower ordered U.S. Marines to come up on a beach. It's a very cute picture. You can go and Google it and find it online, where like there's like a Lebanese girl like on the corniche licking an ice cream cone, and like U.S. amphibious assaults coming up on the beach because we were protecting the Maronites. Yeah, we were protecting the Maronites. The Maronites lost their power during the Lebanese Civil War, so now Israel's the only one left.
I see a few hands, so I'm going to zigzag to try to get them in order.
My question has to deal with economics and the oil, and it seems like Iran is making a lot of money right now. We to cut their sanctions, open it up so they can have $80 billion pouring in there. It's the same thing with Russia, again, and yet we have cut down oil production in the U.S. and in Canada. Why are we supporting the economics over there so they can be buying these weapons to attack us?
Yeah, good question. My wife's probably smiling because I love oil. Yeah, I could talk about oil politics all day long. My country of study in undergrad at Brown University was Iran. I did my thesis, my honors thesis, on George W. Bush policy with the Iranian government. So I'm more than happy to answer this question, and I'll answer it very, very quickly. One, yes, you're referencing when Obama lifted certain sanctions and $150 billion went to Iran. Yes, that's true. Did some of that money find its way to Hamas and Hezbollah? Some of it did, not all. Some of it did, not all. But it's a big reason of why Netanyahu did not like Obama. It's also a big reason of why Netanyahu really didn't like Biden. Saudi Arabia and Israel were the last two to congratulate President Biden when he won. They didn't like him because they didn't like Obama and Biden for what they did there. Now, I'm going to surprise you a little more. $150 billion is not a lot of money. Iran makes way more money selling oil to China. Iran makes way more money selling oil to China. And that's the money that needs to be stopped. But how are you going to stop China? Did everyone shop at Walmart this week? It's hard. How are you going to sanction China? So that's the conundrum. That's the conundrum. It wasn't, yes, people in Washington got mad about Obama releasing the 150. I will say also, Iran has, well, I don't know what the exact number is in the Treasury, but it's way more than 150 billion. 150 billion was not that much money that was frozen when the Shah of Iran fell in 1979. So we have copious, many more hundreds of billions of dollars frozen in Iran's account. So yes, even I slightly disagreed with that. But it's China. It's China. China's buying Iranian oil. China's buying Iranian oil, and that's tons of money flowing to Hezbollah and Hamas. And how are we going to sanction China? That's the issue.
In your vision of the future, in your two-state solution, you talked about the Palestinians being Swiss cheese. And for some people, there's a reminder of our own country's history with the indigenous people. You know, Israel was created after World War II, just plunked down there. Europeans sort of plunked down in North America, but continued to push indigenous peoples back and made and broke treaties because as soon as they found out that they liked certain land, well, then you can't have that. And ultimately, everyone's on reservations. To what extent are those parallels even meaningful? And in particular, I know some people say the reason we support Israel, you've given good reasons, but is because they're playing the same role that the U.S. did historically. And so, of course, they're our buddies. We will push anyone out that we don't like and take the land that we want.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Here's how I'll attempt to answer it. Sorry, not by kicking a pumpkin. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. So I see what you're saying. You are correct, I would feel. There are other people friends of mine, who vehemently disagree with what I'm about to say, and that's fine, we're still friends. When land is valuable, that's the land that if you have the power to take it or to have influence on usage, then the powerful will win. Israel has, obviously, a military, much stronger. Palestinians don't have a military, right? They have the militia groups, Hamas or whatever, but that's about it. And the Palestinian people don't really support Hamas, so that's a whole other aspect. But those bypass roads that go through Hebron and Jericho, you're asking a question, is it analogous to what happened with the Native Americans? Well, we were in Nebraska for however many years. The Dakotas are north. The Black Hills were given to the Lakota Nation until they found gold. Gold was found, and out you go, I don't agree with it. I'm not just saying it to be politically correct. I don't agree with it. I don't want to say South Africa, because I can hear my friend Rachel chewing my head off right now, because she explodes when I mention South Africa. But the same thing we're done with Bantustans. Did the apartheid government in South Africa give them the gold mines and the diamonds? And oh, this is your land. No. Diamonds were found, out you go. Gold is found, out you go. We need the river to bring down to Johannesburg for the growing population, out you go. That's what happens. That's what happens. I don't agree with it happening, okay? As a Christian, as a follower of Christ, I cannot agree with that happening. However, in this sin-soaked world, that is what's happening now. Daniel 11 says, he shall come to his end and no man shall help him. God will judge in the end. I hope that attempted to answer.
Would you comment on anti-Semitism?
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. I hope the internet is hearing this. It's wrong. Anti-Semitism is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because let me raise a possibility, historic aspect, and people can agree or they can disagree. I'm coming at it from even the Adventist perspective. As Adventists, we understood that the church dominated Europe for 1,260 years. Yes? As it says in Revelation. Which church dominated Europe? The Catholic Church dominated Europe. The Catholic Church effectively was a religio-political entity that continued a lot of the bureaucracy of the old Roman Empire, even still to this day, right? You have the Roman Curia, the Roman court. Here's the point. If you are establishing, as the Catholic Church did in medieval Europe, Christendom, right? And you're establishing a continental form of civilization, and it's the Roman imperial civilization continued in religious form. If you're the Vatican and you're continuing that, and you have religious Jews that have their own law and their own economic system, but you're like, I want you to follow my law and my economic system, you have a clash. And my humble, historic, researched opinion is that that's why you have the anti-Semitism. If centuries ago, the Ashkenazi Jews in Europe said, okay, Vatican, we'll follow your law, we'll get rid of our law, we'll assimilate. Because remember, Roman Empire loved assimilation. We'll get rid of our law, we'll assimilate. We'll get rid of our financial system and our internal way of making money, we'll assimilate. You would have no anti-Semitism. You would have, of course, the regular individual, people not liking people just because of a sin-soaked world, but you wouldn't have the systematic anti-Semitism that Europe is famous for centuries. I would go down the line, we don't have time, but just to mention in 2 seconds, that, same thing with World War II, right? So the anti-Semitism against Jewish people, especially in Western areas, has been because, the forcing of Jews to assimilate. And we have the right. We're made in God's image. I should only have to assimilate to God's law, and that's it. Yeah.
We have time for one more question over here, trying to push it as much as we can before we get ready for the worship service. Last question.
Do you believe that Israel has a right to exist right where it is?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And we have 10 minutes to use the restroom.
Please join me in welcoming or thanking Christopher Banks for sharing with us this morning. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm going to close with a brief word of prayer, and then those of us who are involved in the worship service, I would encourage you to meet in the back room. Let's pray together. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for this moment to gain some clarity.